Okay. All right. So, friend, for the record, state your name and the short title to your story.
um, you can call me Ryan. Ryan Underhill is the name. You can find me on Facebook, but I keep stuff kind of private. If you really want to follow a lot of my things, my big project right now is my boat in seasteading. It's called Operation Argos, the Tears of Lethe. My life story is, I guess, a bit of one of adventure, exploration, and discovery. It took a long time to get to where that was, but I've always been kind of like that, even as a little kid, just tromping around the swamps of South Louisiana, just on my own, man. So that's the basic premise of how I go about life. That, and I like to help people out, generally speaking.
Okay. All right. Um, so what was life like for you when you were a kid? How'd you grow
Okay,
up?
so yeah, so we're talking. I'm a Gen Xer, so we're talking the late '70s through the '80s, and then graduating high school in the early '90s. Uh, Life was a lot different for the younger listeners out there. It's really hard to explain. You had more intimate contact with people, but less world connectivity, if that makes sense. So, your neighborhood, your family, you spent a lot more time with them, and especially not inside. Uh, I grew up in an area, New Orleans is my hometown, and it's a large port town. So we did, and we still do get a lot of people from throughout the world, sailors, tourists, laborers, some intellectuals, artists are really welcome here. So, unlike a lot of places, I would say, in North America, generally speaking, um, the breadth and depth of interaction that we had and have to this day is a bit wider than, say, your breadbasket folks growing up in, say, Des Moines, um, or Minneapolis, St. Paul area, or Topeka or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of lifestyle. But growing up in New Orleans through a very transitional time, you got to understand, I was born just a little bit before the oil crisis and everything going on in the Persian Gulf, which grossly affected New Orleans. The Gulf Coast, the Central Gulf Coast, really thrives and works off of just a few different components, and one of them is the petrochemical industry. So I've seen booms and busts come along with stuff like tourism and everything. Things come up and down. And really, the climate, and when I say climate, I don't mean weather climate, I mean the social, cultural climate here is not your typical um, American type of scenario. It's been said that New Orleans is the northern outpost of the Caribbean, and I can really confirm that through my own travels. We're much more multilinguistic than many places, and we have a lot of exposure to Latin American culture in particular. Um, I was orphaned and then adopted into a Honduran family. Honduras has very close links to New Orleans because of United Fruit Company. If anybody doesn't know the background to that, you know them for their bananas and stuff, but they're a very large organization. It was started here in Louisiana and imports from the original Banana Republic, Honduras. So the background is varied. I've got a family and I've lived some time down in the bayous and Cajun country, a very different lifestyle, language that isn't spoken by anybody anymore. We've watched the death of the local Cajun version of French in my lifetime. Like nobody speaks it anymore. And it's really difficult. So, like when I was growing up, here people start like in kindergarten learning at least two or three languages, usually English and French, but Spanish has become much more prevalent of late. And so you learn Parisian or Castilian. You don't learn Haitian Creole. You don't learn Central American Spanish. You don't learn Cajun French. And so to interact with those types of people, you have to basically learn a whole different language. Uh, it makes for very interesting sorts of interactions with people, to say the least. Uh, I also, even though this is an urban environment, it's, I think, by volume, still the largest port in the United States. The separation between rural and urban in southern Louisiana is almost non-existent. Like, you can go straight out of the city and you're in the swamp, you're in the bayous, you're in the marshes. So I grew up just mucking around in the swamp as a kid, cutting down a stick and just chasing off snakes, or maybe going fishing, or whatever, picking up turtles out on trails or whatever. And I grew up, and I still do to this day, occasionally go out trawling for shrimp. It's a very unique life experience, so to say. I love learning about new things and exploring new areas. And like I said, that's always kind of been my goal in life, or at least my drive, so to say. So a few years back, um, on a whim, I just took off on my motorcycle and drove from here to Key West because I wanted to do it. You know, I had the flexibility within my vocation to be able to take 2 weeks to go do something like that.
That's awesome.
And oh, it really is. It really is. I never settled down, never had a wife, no kids or anything like that. It isn't that I'm averse to the type of scenario. Just it's never come up really. And so I don't have the normal responsibilities a person would have from day to day.
Okay.
So if I want to go this, that, or whatever, if I want to take a couple of years to do something, like right now, I'm taking a sabbatical from being a university lecturer, professor in biology, in order just to write, because I felt like doing it. And it's, I know you understand, but I'm not sure all your listeners would understand that I've never been a 9 to 5er type of guy, you know, and I live a very frugal lifestyle. Looking behind me, look, there's nothing going on back there, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, I had thought about maybe doing this recording on my ship. I was like, nah, I have a better connection here in town, so I'm using one of the rooms at my grandparents' hacienda, and I have a good Wi-Fi connection here. There's nothing here, you know. I don't live any sort of fancy lifestyle. I
Yeah.
like to adventure, go out, meet new people, which is strange because I'm an introvert. I keep to myself a lot. Um, and eat lots of good food. You'd never know because I'm thin as a wisp, but man, I love to eat some good new food. That's another thing we've been privileged here in New Orleans, between Cajun and Creole cuisine. It's world famous for a reason because it's really good.
Right. Right. That's awesome. It sounds like you're living a lifestyle that you've carved out just to suit your every whim, and I think that's amazing.
Yes, yes, and it's not always easy. Sometimes you don't want to live really Spartan. You want to muck it up a little bit or whatever. But yes, I've definitely cultivated a type of life whereby I can experience new things. So it's expensive to go out and do stuff, right? I've been playing horns, brass horns, since I was 12. And that affords you a sort of free pass to do a lot of stuff, especially in New Orleans and a lot of other places. So you want to go see a group or whatever. Well, it's somebody that you happen to know. So you show up to the back door at the event venue, whatever. Hey man, you mind if I sit in? Sure, Ryan, come on in. You know, um, and instead of going about and buying a ticket, now I've become part of the show. And I like that. I don't really like standing in crowds too much either. So it works out for me. So yeah, I do stuff like that. I think about how I want to go about something in a non-novel manner. And I think that's one of those things that people get locked up in. Uh, is I don't I don't know exactly what would precipitate that sort of mentality because I'm always thinking about novel ways to do things. Like I have a boat. Got a boat back in 2019. That's a 30-foot sailor. It's what I normally live on. Um, and it came to me. It's kind of weird. That in itself is its own story. And yeah, I could have taken just money that I had, right? So I'm not doing a lot. Not a lot that takes a lot of money. And I could have just thrown the money into the boat and it would have been done 3 to 6 months, right? And I could have been off. But that robs me of an experience of knowing how to rebuild a ship because it's not small. You think 30 feet, that's a whole little bitty dinghy or whatever. It's a big boat. Um, and allowed me to apply electrical work knowledge, plumbing, uh, doing the things that you have to do on a sailboat, taking it out into a dry dock and fixing the hull. And I would have robbed myself of that experience. It's something that me and my brothers, he's done quite well in life in IT and doing startup companies and stuff like that. Have had a different track for a long time. He's a little bit older now, and I think he starts to see value in what I do, like learning and doing an experience. Because for decades, he would be, Ryan, my time is valuable to me. And I get that completely. I was talking to our mutual acquaintance, Luis, I think yesterday. I'm like, time is the most valuable resource without a doubt. And so he would always be, time is valuable to me. So what am I going to do with my time? And he's like, well, I make good money building these websites and these apps and stuff. I'm going to spend that money on hiring a professional to do something. And there's validity there. I
Sure.
completely understand that. But I think he robbed himself of certain life experiences by just hiring out and delegating. Um, and I think he's sort of come around to this. He settled down, got married, had a kid, and I think those life experiences are more valuable to him now. So, like, we had to upgrade the generator and the shocks on his RV. So instead of just hiring it out, he brought it out to the marina, and we did it. I was
Nice.
beside myself. I was completely beside myself. I was like, "This is not the man that I grew up with."
That's
Uh,
awesome.
it really is. It really is. And I think for a lot of people, it can be scary to try something new uh, because they don't want to fail. They don't want to fail. And there's this kind of pursuit for perfectionism. And I used to be like that.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not going to do something unless I'm A plus, 4
Right.
stars on it. And with age and experience comes wisdom. I'm like, it's okay to fail. You
Yes.
know, that's part of the learning experience. It's
Yes.
part of the learning.
There's so much value in failing, right? Because we tend to learn better when it hurts in some way, or I don't know why humans do that, but that's what we do. So, the sooner you learn that the hard way, you're never going to forget it, but you'll have amazing experiences when you chase that failure.
Without a doubt. My grandfather, who was merchant marine, he was a paramedic in World War II. He headed up the local train union here as an engineer for decades. He would always say, he was kind of a blue collar intellectual, sharp as a whip. My father's father, sharp as a whip. Um, but he turned down going to Tulane Med right after the war because he wanted to settle down and have a family. different lifestyle back then. Somebody today would just roll with it, I think, probably, because so many people put career ahead of any sort of familial thing. And I'm not sure that's exactly the best way to go about stuff. He wanted to marry my grandma. Told her he was going to marry her when he got back from the war, and he did, you know. And he would tell me that the experience itself was the best teacher. He said, you can shortcut it though. And this is kind of the mentality I've taken as a mentor, you know, in my professorship or when I used to run clinics as a chiropractic physician. Mentorship allows us to have a little bit of shortcut within the perspective of the mentor. A good mentor is just going to deal with, I know it's so cliched, a better way of thinking about stuff and analyzing stuff other than the data itself. I think it frustrated a lot of my students through my decade plus time in academia because they had been trained to how do I put this? They'd been trained to pass tests. And I absolutely detest that. I detest it with every fiber of my being. I want these people to be able to think.
Critically.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. But just, have a little introspection and perspective, maybe a little compassion about stuff. I think people forget that. These other people you talk to online or you talk to on the phone or you meet in person, they're human beings too. And they might be dumber than a basket of rocks, but you can almost always learn something from them, even if it's to not be this way. Look at you laughing.
Sometimes that's the lesson.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for that input in my life. I will never be seeing you again.
I want to
Yeah.
tell you a little anecdote here, just a short little anecdote. So I walk the streets of New Orleans. I prefer to walk when I can. It's an urban environment, and it's my hometown. At 3 a.m. in the ghetto, I feel safe. It makes my family very nervous. But I tell you what, posture is a big thing. And you walk around and you own it. You
Yeah.
own a scene.
Yeah.
Nobody will fool with you. Literally nobody.
Yeah. You know
Yeah.
what is a great tool is eye contact and self-confidence. It's crazy.
Yes. Yes. That's
Crazy.
exactly right. Isn't it? You humanize yourself and the other person by looking them in the eye. You humanize a human being when you look them in the eye. When you cast down or you look up above them, um, that eye positioning, you're spot on here. When you cast down, you're automatically putting yourself into a submissive role.
Mm-hmm.
Now that person, through these nonverbal cues, is going to treat you like a subordinate or an inferior. If you look above them or past them, they're going to consider you more of, maybe haughty or arrogant or something. You know, I walk around with my head kind of high and my shoulders rolled back. You wouldn't catch me hunching over unless I'm reading something. I used to get a lot of hell for that back in college. Why are you trumping around like a soldier marching? I'm like, and I think about it, and man, I had that conversation with my best friend at the time. He's a surgeon now, I think, out in California. I was like, I don't want to have a bad back when I'm older. And now I'm older and I don't have a bad back. So, back to my little story, just to bring it back into perspective. I walk the streets sometimes and people understand you in an existential type of framework, so to say. So, my students understood me as lecturer, as professor, as mentor. I could be in a parade and most of them wouldn't recognize me.
Right.
They wouldn't recognize me. I'm leading a band. I've got a dance team in front of me. You know,
It's
I'm a
way out of
performer.
context for them.
It's so they don't conceptualize.
Hmm.
And so very few of them. It's always nice. It's just like a little gumdrop of happiness in the day. They say, Doc Ryan, you can understand. Uh, I wasn't a researching professor. I was a lecturer. Okay, especially after my last motorcycle accident, I couldn't even work in the lab. My right hand is kind of garbagey now. It's just one of those things of life you deal with. So, so I see him out. I can remember it was in front of this little Italian restaurant. It's been here for ages. The family's had it for generations. Right, this young man, I'm like, hi, how's it going? You know, it could be any of the tens of thousands of people at this point, right? He's like, I want to tell you something. I said, what's that, young man? He said, you were my professor in biology, biology 101, just a little general biology course. You know, you've taken it. This is the cell. This is how you define life. This is the mitochondria, you know? And he's like, I sucked in your class and I failed. I'm like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. You know, I want all my students to succeed in whatever it is they decide to do. Modern Western society really pushes people into higher ed that don't need to be there. And this really pissed off the administration as far as I went. More than once did the dean or the department chair want me to flex on grades. No, I wasn't having it.
Wow.
Yeah, I was the asshole.
Good job.
And so the student says, I want to thank you. What? What? You failed my class. You want to thank me? You made me realize that I didn't need to be in college. I'm a successful businessman now, and I'm happier than I've ever been. And it's because of the way you interacted with me.
I love that.
I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's 4 or 5 years past now. And I can still think about that young man sitting with his girlfriend out in front of Reginelli's there on Magazine Street, just blocks from where I'm doing this recording right now. And he said that, and it put a big smile on my face. I'm like, you got to know where you need to be, dude. You got to know where you need to be. Oh, man. And I think people are afraid. And so something like college or just taking on a 9 to 5 or uh, and just getting along or even side gigs. A lot of people do Uber or DoorDash or whatever as a main job. And I'm like, man, that's tough. I do side gigs to this day all the time. I'm writing every
Same.
day, working on my books. But like tomorrow morning, I'm giving tuba lessons, you know? That's what
Because
I
you
do
can. Yeah. Because
because
you
I
know how
can.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing that for 3.5 decades now.
Yeah.
Holy crap, I can't believe I've lived this long. But
Yeah.
um,
That's what
because I can
happens
do
when
it.
you collect skills and you collect experiences. That's been my main motivation in my adult life too. When I was a kid, everybody was off to college because they knew they wanted to go. And I just went to college because I was, I guess, supposed to. And I got halfway through my associate's degree and I was spending all of this money because I was paying for it to learn the things I had already learned. And I was like, this is stupid. Like, there's nothing I really have to go. I don't want to be a surgeon. I don't, whatever. Like, I didn't have big aspirations like that. I shouldn't have been there. So I decided to quit going. That was the best decision ever.
Yeah, it's great. Um, Probably 90+% of people that go to higher ed now, and I'll likely get a lot of flack for this, should have never even stepped foot into um, a university building in their lives. Most of us do learn from straight up life experiences we were talking about earlier, making these failures, and really only in the most hardcore scholastic pursuits. And I knew I was going to college, you know. since I was a little kid. And not just because it was expected of me, but because I did want to be an academic. And it's one of those goals I reached back in 2021 or maybe last year. I can't remember. I decided I was done with that for now. When I'm old and tired and I can't do anything else other than talk, I'll go back to being a lecturer again.
There you
I
go.
love it. I love the interaction. I didn't like the politics of academia. The ivory tower is absolutely brutal about that. You know, it was the politics of stuff that got me out of healthcare as well.
Mhm.
I walked away when Obamacare, the ACA or whatever it's called, Affordability Care Act came into play, and I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
Dealing with insurance makes you disgruntled as a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was going to become a scholar. I wanted to. This is something I wanted to pursue, to get deep into academia. Most people have no aspirations on that,
Hmm.
and they don't have any needs to reach their life goals to do that. And it's a sad state of society. I mean, we're sitting on trillions of dollars in student debt. Um, that's a life debt now because of the way of structuring that debt and how government subsidizes and laws and everything. And it's a disservice to everybody other than the bankers and the politicians that they're lobbying to. It does nothing good for the economy. Most of the money in those increases in tuition go straight into rebuilding infrastructure or increasing the bureaucratic bloat. You know, uh, I've seen it with my own eyes. I almost want to cry thinking about it. I just want to sit there and teach people how to help other people. That's where I was, and I felt like I was spinning my wheels. I felt like I was spinning my wheels. And it sounds like you were down a very similar route, only much earlier in your life path. I'm glad that you realized that, and I wish more people would. And some of my brother, famous, made all these successful businesses and sold them off. He just likes doing startups. That's like his thing, right?
Yeah. Entertainment.
He did one semester at the University of New Orleans. He said, "This is not for me." Within 5 years, he's on the cover of Wired magazine. I'm like, oh, like I want to be like you when I grow up.
Right. He knew he took it and he ran with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, he told me some years ago now. He's like, Ryan, I figured out that I'm good with computers. I'm really good at it, and I can get paid for it. And getting paid allows me to do the stuff I want to do. And he's followed that dream. He's going to be 40 next year. God, I remember when he was a baby. I'm much older than him. But so I kind of raised my siblings. I was like the third parent. But it's so good to see people figure that much out much earlier on in life. And I think for us as mentors and mentorship, you're a parent, you understand, is to help them realize that much earlier on. They're going to make mistakes. And they should be learning lessons if they don't get like killed from the whole experience. But you should be able to shortcut them by telling them or explaining to them, you may not want to go this direction. I know you need to learn and grow, but you may not want to go this direction. And I think that's one of our biggest tasks as mentors and helping other people is helping them avoid the mistakes that we made. Go make your own brand new mistakes, but don't make the mistakes that we made. You know, I've
Right.
done some epically dumb stuff in my life. I literally
Yes.
cannot believe I'm alive right now talking to
You
you.
you know, you have to be young and dumb in order to be old and wise. So I've got the first half covered. I'm working on that second half.
Yes, indeed, girl. Yes, indeed. Um, so our jobs as parents, as guardians, as mentors, uh, teachers, professors, doctors, lawyers, whatever, is to be able to ease ease that part along, because any animal can learn. Bacteria can learn. I can tell you, I've seen it in a petri dish before. But one of our strengths as humans, other than pattern recognition, is the ability to impart not just genetic information, but mimetic information. We say memes and we post up these funny little macros up on, or witticisms up on the internet, or show each other or whatever, or tell each other. Before that, we would tell each other quotes, I had a friend that would go pick up a quote book and start pulling stuff out. People used to actually use quote books in order to become conversationalists. I think it's really shallow. I think it's really, really shallow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, good on them for trying to at least increase the depth of how they were discussing things, And so we can impart this mimetic knowledge or information, and it allows us to kind of hack the universe, if you will. And so our ability to progress culturally, socially, and technologically is through that sharing of information. It's one of the things that I find that textbooks in science, at least, that being my main discipline, tends to shy away from. I think people don't have a full grasp of what science is or the philosophy behind science. But the end components are predictability on a statistical level. If you want to talk about ones and zeros, black and white, go sit in a philosophy course. And no, seriously, I love that at the very beginning, because now, as having been a professor, I completely understand it. All the young girls are sitting there talking to Indiana Jones at the beginning of what was the one, the Holy Grail, the Last Crusade. And he's like, this is archaeology or anthropology, whatever. I think he was an archaeologist. He said, in here, we're going to talk about facts. If you want to learn about truth, go down the hall to the philosophy. Now,
Nice.
there is a philosophy behind science. I took that and I didn't really have the perspective until I lived that kind of Indiana Jones life, And I'm like, he's completely right about this situation. He's completely correct about this situation. And so in science, we deal with predictability on a statistic level. At least in the hard sciences, we like that to be at least 95% of the time we have predictability. And then the part that's always seemingly forgotten in these textbooks, I swear to God, I'm going to write at least one science textbook before I die, is sharing the information. That component's absolutely vital. That's really the essence of mentorship and what I was talking about before. And, you're going to screw up in novel manner. Hopefully, I minored in philosophy in undergrad, but I've done most of my learning on that on my own. I'm writing a book right now on Confucius, because I know jack about Eastern civilization. So let's go back to the root, right? Go back to Confucius, and maybe after that, Lao Tzu, something like that. But I'm working on Confucius now. And it's difficult to grasp onto because it's so alien. The primacy of the collective versus the individual, which is more of the train of Western tradition, explains a lot when you look at geopolitics and culture and stuff like that. So going into philosophy, a lot of that is self-taught. So I start going in, I'm like, I have these ideas. I start writing them down. And then I find out I reinvented the wheel. And it's so disappointing. It makes me feel good that I was able to come to the same conclusion as Spinoza on pantheism, for
Yeah.
example.
Organically on your own.
And I was like, wow. Because a friend of mine is a philosopher, he's a PhD in philosophy, right? That's literally what he does. I was talking to him one day and he says, "Oh, you're a Spinozan." I was like, "What? I haven't read a lick of Spinoza in my life." I knew of him, right? Most of my background in philosophy dealt with existentialism just because of the professors I had at my disposal, which is much later down the line in Spinoza by a good century or two. And I was like, what? You mean I've spent like the past 3 years coming up to this conclusion and I reinvented the God blessed wheel? I've seen this a few other times, and I think that I'm trying to tie that back into what I meant with mentorship
Hmm.
and helping other people and and allowing them to grow and learn. It was an amazing experience for me, and it puffed up my chest to be able to come to the same conclusion as this world famous philosopher. He'll be remembered
Absolutely.
long after you and I are dead. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
This guy had a great thought. He wrote it down. I also had the great thought. I'm awesome too.
You have to be able to pump yourself up. Yeah, you really do. I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd. I'm an odd person. I was bullied as a child a lot uh, by some people that probably shouldn't have never been bullying me. You know, people you wouldn't expect. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. The end conclusion of it was that I've rebuilt myself, my ego, so to say. And people talk negative about ego. Ego keeps you alive.
Hmm.
It's when ego's out of control that it's problematic.
Balance. Balance in all
Yeah, yeah.
things.
Yes, yes, yes. Humility is what I'm working on now because I had to rebuild myself from scratch because things were kind of crappy and people did talk poorly about me. And dudes would come up and start fights with me when I was younger and I'd be scrappy about the whole situation. But you have to have that confidence. And it swung too far for me. I'm a classic example of what goes on with the pendulum. So I always been an outgoing, even as a little kid, an outgoing person, but I was a bit sheepish about trying new things and doing new things and being afraid to be hurt or die or whatever. And I got to a point of fearlessness, which itself is dangerous. You know, you can't really reach your goals and do what you want to do if you're stuck within this paradigm of just reckless abandon. It's a type of hedonism almost because it's not always about pleasure seeking. Usually it's about adrenaline and
Yeah.
thrill seeking.
Yep.
Some people channel that through like going to haunted houses or being scared. If you brought me into a haunted house this month, seeing as it's October, I'd be strolling beside you and laughing. That's literally how I go about a haunted house. I worked in them as a kid. Stuff like that doesn't scare me. I know those people can't even touch me. Uh, and so I don't have a suspension of disbelief.
Sure.
And but some people that's how they channel it. For me, I'll channel it into doing the most dangerous thing I possibly can. You know, I've literally ridden my motorcycle through the Okeechobee Swamp, through the Everglades in the middle of torrential rainstorms.
Oh my gosh.
Like, yeah,
That's nuts.
it's nuts. What sucks is the hypothermia in the middle
Ugh.
of summer in Florida.
Lord.
Well, when the temperature drops 50 degrees because of the rain
Yeah.
and the wind, it's just something that happens, you know? And so you get to the end of that and you're just like, and some people do cocaine.
Right.
Some people go into haunted houses. I do really dangerous things, and that's problematic.
At a point, absolutely.
And so what I've been what I've been trying to cultivate now is a humility, a sort of humility to life. I know it's funny. We're sitting here talking about me this whole time,
It's amazing.
but I've been trying to cultivate a sort of humility. So people get into online discussions, and I'm not as much of a poster anymore, a content creator as I used to be when I was on radio or doing podcasts myself and being the one on your end. I still comment regularly. And when people say something I don't know, I'll straight up be like, well, I was kind of ignorant about that. And a lot of times somebody will mock you because they're petty or it makes them feel better. I think these are the same type of people that watch America's Funniest Home Videos when people get hurt on TV, and I can't watch that. It nauseates me. But every now and then you'll get somebody that recognizes that little bit of humility there and is willing to teach you. And that's the moments I savor there. And I think a lot more people should take that sort of tack when they're dealing with things, because you're not an expert on everything.
No.
Uh, you don't have the occult knowledge. This is a problem within I don't know if you call it truth or conspiracy theory, whatever, portion of the population, whereby they kind of discredit themselves by believing even the wildest things. And if you don't believe them, they're like, oh, you just don't know. Oh, really?
Well,
Tell
educate me
me.
then.
Yeah, everybody else is an idiot and I'm a genius.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, at least that I'm working on right now. A lot of people put a front online, especially, or if they go on TV, they're doing something like that or the radio. And in reality, they're like sheep in wolves' clothing. They're fronting, and I'm like, this is so blatant. And so now, instead of engaging them, uh, if they're really mean about it, I'll mock them, or just so everybody can have a laugh and see how ridiculous they are, or just walk
Mhm.
away. I'll be like, I'm done with this conversation. I'm too old for this shit. Time, as I said earlier, is the most valuable resource, and I'm not going to piss it away on you.
No,
You
and
know,
protecting your peace is worth more than this interaction with this jerk that's probably not going to think another thought about you, you know?
no,
It's not
no,
worth
they
it.
don't even know you. Who are you?
Yeah.
They have this handle online, like big jerk off or whatever. I'm like, I can't seriously.
Right.
You know those people.
You got to
We
consider
run
the
in some
source.
similar circles. Yeah, like, or they ask you to do citations. I mean, as an academic, I used to thrive on that. Well, I normally don't take a stance unless I have thorough backing to it,
Sure.
philosophical or empirical data. I gave this up after the Rona scare, and I call it what it is because that's what it was. Did people die? Yeah. Did people die of this virus? Yeah. Did as many people die from this virus as they're saying? No, it didn't. And I went on, I don't know if you recall, I was on James Harding's podcast back in May of 2020.
Hmm.
And I asked people to kind of take a middle road on this and try to be reasonable. I had people attacking my credentials. I had death threats, things like that. And I was just trying to be reasonable. Okay, so they want you to wear a mask in a clinic. Who gives a crap, right? I didn't stay inside for lockdowns. I was literally on my motorcycle enjoying the open freeways. If you want to lock yourself up, that's up to you. I think you're stupid. I think you need some vitamin D. And I think you need some physical activity because the people dying from this are all a bunch of lard asses that sit inside and are pasty. People don't like to hear that. They want their magic pill, they want their special shot, and they want to move on with it. Why didn't you comply? Because it was stupid. And so I would go in, and as an academic, I would treat these people as peers on an academic level. And so, okay, well, this sounds like a bunch of crap. Post up 10 articles. Just just wallpaper them, right? I'm not reading all that crap.
Then why did you ask for it?
Yeah, don't ask me. Don't
Yeah.
ask me. And so now when somebody says, well, you got data on that? I'm just going to be sarcastic. It came to me in a vision from God, or it was a delusion, or I was high on mushrooms. And then I say, you're not worth the time. My time is very valuable, and I'm not going to have this conversation with you anymore. And I'll let them know explicitly so they understand that it's no longer about them.
Right.
I've now made it about me, and I'm walking away because they're not valuable enough for me to have this conversation with them. And they're
Yes.
not going to change their mind. You can only meet people where they are. You can't make them come to you. You
Nope.
know, it's like having a burro. You
Mm-hmm.
pull on a rope, um, and that mule is stubborn as hell. You can entice him with a carrot. He might show up or not, but if he's in a mood, he ain't going to do anything. I'm dead serious. If you've never dealt with farm animals, you don't know.
No, I love donkeys. They're amazing.
Hardy animals, smart, much smarter than horses.
Yeah. They're
I
like
used to date.
dogs.
I used to date a barrel racer, and that pony she had was stubborn and dumb. Like he wanted to throw people and stuff. Donkeys are smart. They get to a cliff they can't do. They're turning around. They're not even going to listen to you. They're
Right.
done.
Nope.
Dogs are similar. I had a dog. I trained from the day he was weaned, and I was with him until the day he died. And that dog was smart. Not all animals are like that, unfortunately. We all have different gifts, I guess. And you can't make, metaphorically speaking, we said you can bring the horse to water, you can't make him drink. And that's literally what the way I go about this with people now.
Yep.
Oh, okay, you're of that opinion. Okay.
Have
Yeah,
a great
it's
day.
all you. Yeah, have
Bye.
a great day. You know, there's nothing more for me to learn here, and you're not willing to learn. You already think you're an expert and or you have some occult knowledge, or you think I'm an idiot. I'll put up with a lot of insults. Like I said, I was bullied as a child and a teen, uh, but I don't put up with being called stupid. That's where I draw the line.
That's a bad
That
word
you,
in my house.
oh man, it enrages me. I had it out with my uncle recently, and he was saying some stuff. He's running for political office this year. I don't think he's going to win it. He's not charismatic at all, but he's running because he still believes in the system, unlike us.
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I told. My brother sent me a text with one of his campaign posters up, one of those huge ones, like 5 foot by 3 foot or whatever. I said, good luck to him. And I was conceding on some of the points he was making, but because I didn't 100% submit to his opinion, he tried to play a gotcha move. You've seen this before, where somebody makes a simple logical or grammatical error, and they're like, aha. It's cunning, but it isn't intelligent, and it's not a legitimate form of debate. And I turned to him in the truck loudly. We were going trawling that day, believe it or not. Me, him, and my brother. This is kind of a family tradition at this point. And I turned to him and I say, look, I conceded a lot of your points. I don't agree with your opinion. And he pushed it. I was like, okay, you've called me stupid now. In essence, I don't think he used the word stupid. I said, you're treating me like an idiot. And I'll put up with a lot of shit, but I'm not putting up with this, not even from you. And he hasn't talked to me since. Um, I hope he comes back around. He's an old bachelor. He needs family, you
Yeah.
know? And I've always made sure to include him in stuff and keep in touch with him. He's got so much angst, and there's nothing I can do about that. And there's people online like that. And those people I literally don't care about, and I'm not going to put the investment in.
Right.
You've got to meet people where they are.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest life lessons I've learned. You can't bring them to you. You got to meet people where they are. And if they aren't in a spot where you're comfortable or you feel like you're being productive or it serves your purpose. And I don't say this in a selfish manner because my purpose is literally just to help people.
Right.
If it doesn't serve your purpose, you got to put that time and those resources elsewhere. You can't be stuck in that bad relationship. You can't save them. You know, obviously, there's some exceptions to the rules. You're a mother. If you have a kid that's in a bad spot, it's your obligation to help them. But as from one consenting or non-consenting adult of sound mind to another, at some point you have to cut it off. You have to cut it off, and you're like, I've got to put my resources elsewhere. I've absolutely got to, and that's a huge life lesson for me, and hopefully anybody listening to this. And I'll just mean romantic or familial relationships. I mean work relationships. People quit managers. They don't quit a job. They quit management. Um, and so, although I am an introvert, which is, like I said, strange because I'm really gregarious, I need a lot of downtime. Like, I'm going to get off this with you and I'm going to read and I'm going to write probably for hours the rest of the day today.
Quiet time.
Yeah. I mean, that's people don't understand. It's like 90% or more of my time is just me by myself, you know? And then people contact me, they need assistance because they know I help people, you know? When I'm not on my boat, I'm staying here. It's a huge complex my grandparents have. And I'm staying in this little room that you see behind me, or at least part of it. If I show you the whole thing, you'd see how simple it is. It's a bed and a desk and a cabinet, and that's it. Uh, because my family asked me to help them. My grandfather turned 90 this year, and I've been helping him out. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
Take out the trash, cut the grass. They don't drive anymore, so I go get them groceries every day. Um, and that suits my purpose of helping people and going out. I had a friend I haven't talked to in months. I thought he was mad at me because the last time I saw him, he was in a bad mood. No, he needed somebody to watch his dog while he was out of town. And he literally hadn't talked to me forever. But it's my friend. He used to help me lead my band when I had a band. It was a big thing. A good 100, people in that marching group for Carnival.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted a band. I made a band, and I made it big.
That's awesome.
Never go small. Never go small. This is absolutely my belief. Why just dip your finger in a pool of life? I'm jumping in. I'm splashing on everybody. You're gonna know when I'm doing something. And it's not about just assuaging my ego. It's just how I go about life.
Fun that way.
It's either 100% or nothing. And so, he needs help. I got you, man. Watch his dog for the weekend. So a friend of mine wants to learn tuba. I trained her in trombone. She's a pretty good trombonist now. Now it's time to learn some bass lines. It's a whole nother ball game. We've been working on it for 6 months now. She finally had a breakthrough. She finally got through a big plateau for herself 2 weeks ago. I was so happy for her. As a mentor, that's what you live for. You're like, the light bulb finally came on.
Yeah. To watch them light up is one of the greatest gifts life can give you.
Yeah. And it's a huge gift for them.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I want people to be their best self. And however I can assist in that, and it's not like the altruism, well, they're better, so it makes society better, it makes me better. I just want them to be able to live their best life. There's no other than the satisfaction of seeing them having reached a goal with me involved. Maybe that's a little bit of ego. I have no other motivation there. I just want them to be better. I
Yeah.
think that's the essence of charity, really.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about love. Love is a type of giving without expectation. Sometimes people want to give me money when I'm doing stuff. Okay, you give me money, whatever. I might be frugal. I'm not destitute. But like if my grandma wants to give me $20 because I went to the grocery, who am I to say no to her? It makes her feel better.
People
you
like to
know?
reciprocate.
They do. You know, there's a mutualistic aspect and a kind of tribal aspect to our humanity. I think modern urban life has taken a lot away from that. We have too much shallow interaction. As we started this discussion, I see we're running out of time soon. As we started this discussion, um, and we're kind of coming back around and closing up this discussion, there's a lot of very superficial interaction and very little profound interaction. And I think it's one of the main reasons why depression and anxiety and suicide are through the roof. We need tribe, dude.
Yep.
Absolutely need tribe. You need somebody you can go to, no questions asked, and it's happening.
Yep.
It's happening. Because if you don't, everything is a potential threat. You know, everything is a potential threat. Um, we have to be able to be providers, protectors of each other, nurturers of each other, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and that's the beauty of it. And you don't have to interact with everybody. You really don't. And you work with the people who you can work with, and you learn what you can learn just to make each other better people and just be happier. You know, maybe it's a little bit of an Epicurean approach. I don't know if it really is, um, or an egocentric approach. And I don't know if that really is that either. It's kind of hard to pigeonhole. You know, language often fails us. Something that someone who loves going into ideologies and things like that, um, it's where it loses it, I think, to some extent. Some languages do some concepts better than others. But really, I really think that we're not built for the type of life we live now. And it makes me glad to see people working in more of little, I guess the term they use nowadays, like on this Zoom cast, would be a pod. You know, I like to think tribe because that's how we evolved for 2 million, 3 million years,
Yeah, I
right?
wonder if there's something to living that way. Weird.
Yeah. You know, we cerebrally can only intimately interact with somewhere between 50 to 250 people, um, depending on the the research that you look at. And so that's how you should work. I'm glad to see a lot of my friends doing stuff like gardening or working in co-ops or mentoring in small groups or one-on-one like you do with your ladies circles on the weekends, because I think that's the essence of where we make real progress. This city stuff is great for transference of data and working in large groups for very large things like building a bridge or a highway or whatever. But for the human soul, it's absolutely bereft. It's absolutely bereft. And I think that's where we are now. And I think people should maybe reflect upon that and maybe not be so eager to rush into the sensory experience and that whole FOMO mindset of bang, 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 bang. I live in one of the biggest tourist cities in the world. There's literally something going on every night. I don't do any of it anymore. That's I'll just finish up with this thought since it's noon now here, at least 11 o'clock for you. There's a time in Conan the Barbarian, you're going to laugh. Very few words in that story, right?
Hmm.
But Robert E. Howard, I've read his stuff, and it fits in with what he says. So Conan is going to the king, right? The king, his daughter, the princess, has been uh, kidnapped by Thulsa Doom. And the king catches Conan and his two cohorts, the Mongol and the Valkyrie woman, whatever the heck she is, I don't know. And they catch him stealing some jewels or gems. He's like, come here. He has this huge chalice and he pours these rubies out and he throws this gold on the ground. And the little Mongol guy goes running for it and trying to pick it all up. He's like, there comes a time when the gem stops shimmering and the gold loses its shine. And only thing that's left is a man's love for his daughter. And I really think that too many people run for the jewels and not for the family. All right. Well, we're out of time. I know you have some other interviews to do today. I'm
I
looking
want to
forward
tell
to
you,
listening to edited content here.
thank you so much for your time and for co-creating this with me. It's been a joy to speak with you and just hear your thoughts, and the way your mind works is beautiful, and I appreciate our time very much.
I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
I know, me
Really, really.
too.
I've always kind of looked up to you and been happy for all the successes you've made in
Oh,
life.
thank
And
you.
it's nice to actually interact on a little bit more intimate level as opposed
Yeah.
to just chatting every now and then, or uh, you coming to me for a little bit of healthcare referral stuff or whatever that we've done over the years, which I enjoy thoroughly.
Yeah.
But this is very nice. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Maybe sometime in the future it can happen again. I don't know. I'm pretty soon to go adventuring across the world.
I'm
If I
so
get
excited
Starlink,
for that.
I'm excited too. If I get Starlink, it could happen. If not, I guess I'll see you over the horizon then.
Okay,
Thank you
well,
so
you'll
much.
know where to find me.
Yes, ma'am. It's been a privilege talking to you today, and I hope your listeners really enjoy what we talked about today as well.
Thank
And I
you.
hope that they have a better life. All right. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you sometime online, Stephanie.
All right, be well.
You as well.